Good day, class. So today we're going to start going into infection control principles and practices. Cosmetologists should study and have a thorough understanding of infection control principles and practices, example, disinfecting products, following federal rules and illnesses that it can occur. In the field of cosmetology, it's important to understand the different types of infections that you may encounter to safeguard you and your clients. OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. OSHA was created as a part of the USA Department to regulate and enforce safety and health standards to protect employees in the workplace. Material Safety Data Sheets, MSDS, known as SDS, Safety Data Sheet, which is designed to create label standards to be used around the world as well as associated hazards, product content, associated hazards, combustion levels, storage requirements. These are some of the things that are really important with the safety data sheets, which we did a assignment the other day and you submitted that, so I think we're well aware of what that is now, and as well as OSHA. Next is Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA is in charge of all salon disinfecting products, regulates and approves the efficiency of products used for infection control. All disinfectants must be approved by the EPA. Very important. State regulatory agencies protects consumers' health, safety, and welfare. Laws, known as statutes, rules, known as regulations, FDA ingredients used in cosmetics must be approved by the FDA. The FDA requires that a predisposition test, known as a patch test, is always performed. Regulatory agencies require that everyone working in a salon or spa follow specific procedures. Penalties can be issued against both the salon owner and the cosmetologist if rules are not followed. Potential infectious organisms. Now let's look at bacteria, fungi, and viruses. So let's talk about this for a minute. Bacteria, fungi, and viruses infect one cell or one tissue and then start spreading around the body, infecting multiple other cells or tissues. One common symptom of most bacteria, fungal, and viruses is a fever, the common fever. So this is why checking for fevers in many establishments before you enter in, especially in a town like this, is very important and is a good way to detect if something is happening on that level. Now let's take a look at some of the bacteria that's listed on this presentation. The writing may be a bit small, but we have listed here tuberculosis, pneumonia, streptococcal infections, that would be like strep throat, gonorrhea, scarlet fever, tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis, bubonic plague. Bacteria, also called germs, are microscopic organisms which are not visible to the naked eye. As small as they are, bacteria are powerful and complex and can survive in extreme conditions. Now let's take a look at some of the viruses that are listed here. We have AIDS, HIV, influenza, herpes in two forms, simplex and zoster, hepatitis, all types, the common cold, poliomyelitis, measles, mumps, and rubella, infectious mononucleosis. Yes, some of these can definitely be tongue twisters. Now let's look at fungi. We have candidiasis, athlete's foot, jock itch, nail fungus, ringworm, histoplasmosis. As I mentioned before, a lot of these are tongue twisters. We're not required to necessarily know all of these things, but we are required to know about bacteria, funguses, and fungi, and different things that will help to keep us and our clients safe in the salon environment by the things that we do, the things that we, the products that we use to make sure that we are protecting ourselves. So this study is very, very important. Salon disinfectants. Bactericidal, destroy bacteria. Fungicidal, destroy fungi. Virucidal, destroy viruses. Of course, the popular bactericidal that we use in salons is barbicide. Bacteria are minute one-celled microorganisms prominent in dust, dirt, refuse, and diseased tissue. It can exist almost anywhere. 1,500 rod-shaped bacteria can fit on the head of a pin. Imagine that. So ology just simply means the study of. So bacteriology is the science dealing with the study of microorganisms. So we've got three types of bacteria, two main ones that we usually talk about, which is non-pathogenic and pathogenic bacteria. So non-pathogenic is helpful, harmless, and beneficial to the body. We have pathogenic, with parasites, harmful type of bacteria that live on live matter and produce disease. Okay, so it's important to memorize those two. So we have non-pathogenic, which is helpful and harmless and beneficial. Pathogenic, which is harmful and it lives on live matter and produce disease. So think about parasites. We've also got saprophytes, which is bacteria that do not cause or spread disease and live on dead matter. So with infection control, it is important to get familiar with a lot of these terms and causes of disease. So let's go through this list. This term we have bacteria, which is one-celled microorganisms having both plant and animal characteristics. Some are harmful and some are harmless. Then we have direct transmission of blood or body fluids through touching, including hand shaking, kissing, coughing, sneezing, and talking. Ooh, scary. Then we have fungi, singular fungus, single-celled organisms that grow in irregular masses that include molds, mildews, and yeast. Then we have indirect transmission of blood or body fluids through contact with intermediate contaminated objects such as razors, which have to be disposed of very carefully and immediately after use in Sharpies containers. We've got extractors, nippers, or an environmental service. We've got infection, which is an invasion of body tissue by disease-causing pathogens. Then we've got germs, non-scientific synonym for disease-producing organisms. Then we have microorganism, any organism of microscopic or submicroscopic size, so relating to the size of it. Then pathogens, harmful microorganisms that enter the body and can cause disease. Then we have parasites, organisms that grow, feed, and shelter on another organism referred to as the host, while contributing nothing to the survival of that organism. Parasites must have a host to survive. Then we have toxins, is various poisonous substances produced by some microorganisms, bacteria, and funguses. Then lastly, we have virus, a submicroscopic particle that infects and resides in cells of biological organisms. So on to page number 6, pathogenic bacteria classifications. Some people will say things a little differently when it comes to pronunciation, but the main thing is understanding and being able to identify some of these shapes and some of these bacteria when we can see them. So tomato, the main thing is understanding. So we have first cocci, which is round shape. Then we have staphylococci, grows in clusters. Then we have streptococci, grow in curved lines. And diplococci grow in pairs, round-shaped bacteria causing pneumonia. Then we have bacilli, rod-shaped, can produce spores when survival conditions become difficult, most common. Then we have spirilla, a corkscrew-shaped, causing syphilis. So these are some of the pathogenic bacterial classifications. Then we have the movement of the bacteria. Cocci-type bacteria that may appear alone or in groups. Bacilli and spirilla use slender, hair-like extensions, flag or cilia, for locomotion. Motile bacteria are able to move about by the use of cilia and flagella, so almost like little caterpillars, that type of look. Page number 7, bacterial infections, staphylococci, including things like food poisoning, toxic shock syndrome, MRSA, local infection, systemic infections or disease, contagious or communicable disease. Next we have blood-borne pathogens, general blood-borne infection, a bacterial or viral infection carried by the blood throughout the body. Hepatitis, inflammation of the liver, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, hepatitis C. Page number 8, we got fungi continued. We've got tinea, which is ringworm, then tinea barbae, barber's itch, tinea capitis, fungal infection of the scalp and the head, tinea pedis, which is ringworm, fungus of the feet, also known as athlete's foot. This is highly contagious. Now we've got parasites, which grow, feed, and shelter on other living organisms and must have a host to survive. We have pediculosis capitis, I'll say that again, pediculosis capitis, which is head lice. We'll hear that a little more if you haven't had much interactions with anything like that. It's very, very important, especially when we get into level 2 or maybe in level 1 when we get some people coming into the salon from the community to do their hair. You have to always look for this in your salons. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So this is head lice, which is highly contagious conditions, usually spread by the use of shared hats, combs, and brushes. If a client has lice, you must refuse the service. You do not continue. So pediculosis, which is lice. Scabies, caused by an itch mite, is highly contagious, an animal parasite. So page number 9 is how the body fights infection. Unbroken skin is the body's first line of defense against infection. That's why making sure that we're properly dressed our wounds, our cuts, and different things like that, and then covering it up with a Band-Aid and using PPE, those things are very important. Body secretions, white blood cells, antitoxins. Then we have immunity. So immunity against a disease may either be a natural or an acquired immunity. Natural immunity is the inborn ability, so just naturally your body just has the ability to fight against certain diseases and infections and things along those lines. Acquired immunity is developed over time, overcoming a disease or through some form of inoculation, some form of shot. I had mentioned white blood cells. These are very, very important. They are made and created in the bones through the marrow, and certain types of white blood cells are released into the body to fight against invading microorganisms. So it's very important to have a good amount of white blood cells and a healthy body to make sure that your body is able to fight against some of these diseases that will try to come and enter into the body and multiply. Let's talk about principles of prevention. Conjunctivitis, tinea, scabies, pediculosis, and the common cold. These are all conditions that will prevent the cosmetologist from working. These conditions are considered contagious or communicable diseases. So a communicable disease is an illness, a parasite that can spread from one person to another. Decontamination is just the removal of blood or other potentially infectious materials on an item or surface, like visible debris or residue or such as dust, hair, and skin. Important to sanitize, disinfect, decontaminate, remove all the things that can be potentially contaminated. Essentially, infection prevention and control is everyone's responsibility, and it helps us to be better equipped and have the right understanding that it's our responsibility to make sure that we do our best to minimize as much as we possibly can the flow and the passing on of different pathogens from one person to another. So decontamination, let's take a look at that from the highest to the lowest. We've got sterilization, disinfection, and sanitation. Sterilization is the highest, strongest level of decontamination, the process that completely destroys all microbial life, including spores. This level of decontamination is required in a medical setting, so not usually something that you'd find in a salon unless you are providing tattoo services and things along those lines. So spores typically are one-cell reproductive, one unit capable of giving rise to a new individual. Now let's take a look at disinfection and sanitation. The killing of most bacteria, viruses, and organisms on surfaces or tools. Disinfection kills, eliminates microorganisms on a non-porous surface, and it is the required decontamination for salons and spas. Sanitation, which is simply cleaning, is a chemical process for reducing the number of disease-causing germs or unclean surfaces to a safe level. Antiseptics can be used to sanitize, but what is an antiseptic? It's a sanitizer, inadequate for the use of implements and surfaces, but designed for human skin and nails. Essentially, the substantial reduction of pathogens from a surface or tools. That's why hand sanitizers are so popular in such a time like this. It's made specifically to sanitize properly our hands, skin, and nails. Choosing a disinfectant. Now, when we talk about efficacy, it's the rate or the level that a product will be efficient in the way it's supposed to be used. We want to make sure everything is EPA approved, especially in the barbershop. Some of the sprays that we use for the clippers and things like that, one thing that we may overlook is some of these sprays have expiry dates, and we don't realize that. We think that we're effectively using it, and they are actually expired. So let's take a look at that next time we go into the salon. And then we have hospital level disinfectants, which is pseudomocidal, and we got bactericidal, fungicidal, and virucidal. Types of disinfectants: quartz, non-toxic, odorless, fast-acting. Recommended strength for quartz salon and spa industry is 1 to 1,000. Implements must remain submerged in quartz for 10 minutes to be sanitized and disinfected properly. Bleach is a very effective disinfectant to be used on towels, capes, and it's very powerful and very effective. You just have to understand how to use some of these bleaches in household bleach, also known as sodium hypochlorite. Let's talk about universal precautions. It's safe to assume that all human blood and body fluids are infectious. Asymptomatic, a person with a contagious disease but displays no symptoms, appears very healthy. The blood of all clients should be treated as if they were infected. The same infection control practices should be used with all clients. Aseptic means unsanitary conditions. Septic means sanitary conditions. PD tests: client's skin become inflamed after a patch test is given. The result is said to be positive. A positive reaction to a PD test would mean that a client is allergic to the product. It's very important to make sure that we do these. This is something that doesn't happen often enough in a salon. When we do get into the classroom, we're going to make sure that we do this. I did have a bad situation once that happened with a client of mine. She, in fact, was allergic to permanent hair color. I was doing her hair for many years and always using semi-permanent color. The one time we used permanent color, not knowing that she was actually allergic, she left from the salon. I believe I told the story before. And went straight to the airport. And the whole time on the flight, she felt itching and she felt irritants. And by the time she landed in New York City, she had to go straight to the hospital, and she was hospitalized. She did take pictures and sent it to me, and it was very scary what happened to her with the use of permanent color on her hair. And so we want to make sure that we just cross all these precautions to make sure that this for the safety of ourselves and for our clients. So page number 15 is universal precautions continued. Pimples, boils, carbuncles that contain pus are examples of local infection. Trichology is just the scientific word and for the study and the dealing of the study of hair. So yes, we are trichologists. And the disease of the hair can be called trichosis. The technical term for dandruff is pityriasis. Pityriasis is what? The technical term for dandruff. The protective covering on body surfaces such as the skin, mucous membranes, and the lining of the heart, respiratory organs, lungs, digestive organs, and glands is called epithelial tissue. The epithelial tissue that covers our body is called the epidermis. So congrats on completing this. I want to encourage you to use some of the words, the definitions, the terminology that we have talked about in this study. It is important to make sure that we intentionally use them in our salons with each other in the classroom. When it comes around for the time to actually write our exam with the government, it will be less anxiety when we are more familiar with a lot of the terms that we don't necessarily use from a day-to-day basis. So I want to encourage you in doing that, continue to take notes and continue to review your notes. It's really important, even after we've passed certain chapters, to go back and just use them as a refresher. Okay, thank you very much and have a wonderful day.